It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the program. Got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Brian Twining drops by from Bleacher Nation to talk about NASCAR. Big race in Iowa yesterday on the short track. It was a mess. Like 17 cautions. We'll also talk with our friend Robin Lundberg, who usually joins us to talk about the WNBA. Today I want to talk to him about wrestling because there was a huge breaking story last night at SummerSlam. Nobody would have expected. I mean, short of like Undertaker rolling Hulk Hogan out in a coffin and Hogan popping out and saying, "Just kidding, I'm really alive." Other than that, I don't think anything could have surprised me more than what we saw at the end of SummerSlam last night. Sammy Arnell, who says hello.
What was it? I didn't watch. What was it?
Brock Lesnar returned to WWE last night.
Because he hasn't been around
he's been
for
gone
a
for a
while.
while. He's been gone for years. And the word was he
Wow.
would never come back because he was kind of caught up in the Vince McMahon mess with some allegations of inappropriate behavior and like.
Well, he's the one who tried to wrestle in UFC, isn't he?
He did. Oh, he fought in UFC. He won some fights in UFC too. And then he got his you-know-what kicked in UFC. By the way, Brock, all the power to you. The dude looked massive last night. All right, let's talk about the NFL. Micah Parsons is not as large as Brock Lesnar, but he is really good at football. And there's a big problem right now for the Cowboys, Sammy Arnell, in that Micah Parsons has finally just thrown in the towel and said, "I want out of Dallas." I don't think any of us saw this rising to this level. We all assumed this deal would eventually get done. But now you start to look around and you say, maybe they're at an impasse and it can't get done.
Yeah, it's like death, taxes, and the Dallas Cowboys having a contract fallout during training camp, which tanks their season. Those are like the three things you can count on in life. This is not good because, Jason, along with the trade request that came out over the weekend, there was seemingly, I don't know if it was more reporting or like Micah just putting this out himself, but the allegation that his agent is being closed out of the room by Jerry Jones very much came to light. And that's not good for a multitude of reasons. We'll talk about the whole NFLPA thing that came out late Sunday night later on this week, but the NFL and Jerry Jones have to be very thankful that the NFLPA is in shambles right now, because if they weren't, I'd have to think that they'd be looking at this whole situation saying, wait a second, you're keeping representation out of these discussions with regard to a labor contract? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to any of us in terms of fair negotiations and what the collective bargaining agreement allows for. So it seems like very murky waters that Jerry Jones has treaded his way into because his mouth seemingly never shuts. And Jason, I don't know how this ends at this point.
I suspect, though, and I will say this about Jerry Jones keeping owners out. There's a lot of things you can criticize Jerry Jones for. I will suspect that most teams try to keep owners out of the loop. I suspect most owners try to go directly to the player. And I say this now having, one, had an agent in my own life, and know what they do and know their value, and sort of playing the bad guy in a lot of these things, and now being on a media ownership side and having to deal with agents, I'm starting to understand why an owner or a boss tries to keep the agent out of the room and deal one-on-one. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's legal or ethical or any of that stuff. I'm just saying I know why it happens. And I suspect it probably happens more times than not. What this boils down to, though, is Jerry and the Cowboys just can't figure out how to get this Micah Parsons deal done. And he is a critical component to what they're trying to do. And at a time of the year where hope is supposed to spring eternal, where every team is supposed to feel like, even the worst teams feel like, hey, we could be that team this year. If you're a Cowboys fan right now, you've got to be thinking to yourself, really? Like, we didn't even get to week 1 yet, and we're already a train wreck. I'm curious to see what the fallout is. What were you going to say real quick?
Meanwhile, up the road in Tennessee, did you see the video that Cam Ward throw this weekend? The Tennessee Titans fans have convinced themselves that they're winning the Super Bowl this year, and the Dallas Cowboys fans are sitting back pouting about their defensive edge rusher.
I'm bringing this one up as a point of personal privilege for you, sir, because you are Bills fan number one on this show. And when I saw this story this weekend, I said, oh, I wonder if Sam's got an interesting take on this, because James Cook shared a lot of the load last year with a couple other guys in that backfield. And now and he's looking around and saying, look, there are a bunch of guys from my draft class on this team who got their bag. I'm not getting mine. I'm in a contract year. I'm going to make a business decision and not practice as a Bills fan number one. But even just from a management standpoint, how do the Bills sort of navigate this situation?
From a management standpoint, there's one thing that everybody in the NFL, and I know everybody at One Bills Drive already understands. Everyone in the NFL has got to understand this, and fans out there alike. James Cook has probably the worst agent in the NFL. James Cook's agent has gone through other contract disputes like this. They never end well for the player. People have questioned why James Cook keeps this guy around. James Cook's agent is once again making a fool of himself via his players' actions. Because, like you said, Jason, James Cook's holdout began on Saturday. James Cook had practiced at training camp in pads and then all of a sudden decides that he's going to hold out. It makes absolutely no sense. From an agent standpoint, this is a perplexing move, especially when you're trying to use it as a ploy to get more money. All it's going to do is get James Cook traded to a worse team, especially when you look at the seasons, like Jason mentioned, that Ray Davis and Ty Johnson put up last year in James Cook's wake, you could say, as he went on to be arguably a top 10 back in the league. I think that there are a lot of components to this, right? Buffalo's got a great offensive line. Josh Allen provides a ton to that running game that makes defenses have to worry about twice as much as any other offense in the NFL, maybe barring the Baltimore Ravens. To me, this is a career mistake that James Cook is making. Take whatever money they'll give you, maybe fight for a couple more guarantees, but holding out a practice in Buffalo of all places, not a great career decision.
I wonder if he tweaked something during those workouts where he had pads on and it gave him pause. And we'll never know. Maybe we will. I wonder if he just tweaked something and was just like, whoa. If I get hurt, I mean, I'm screwed. I just wonder if something like that might have happened. That was the thought that crossed my mind. All right, there is more to do on the show. Baseball went to Bristol, and boy, was it a mess. The Speedway Classic. We'll talk about it next. Major League Baseball played its Speedway Classic on Sunday. They had been originally scheduled to play it on Saturday, featuring the Braves and the Reds. Boy, oh boy. I mean, look, I'm not trying to take shots at Major League Baseball here. They've had a great year. And a lot of these special one-offs they do, whether it's a game in London or the game at Rickwood Field or the game, the Field of Dreams game or the Little League Classic, they generally do a very good job putting on these sorts of events, Sam Yarnell. But this time, they really screwed it up. And it could have consequences. I know everybody's going to say, it's a 162-game season. What is one game? Well, for the Cincinnati Reds, that one game could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. And when you have Major League Baseball doing what it did on Saturday, which bled into Sunday, and the Braves beat the Reds in that game on Sunday, If the Reds miss the playoffs by a year, they really might be able to point to what happened on Saturday, where Major League Baseball should have never started this game, Sam Yarnell. This game should have never begun, given the conditions of that field. I mean, look at how bad the dirt looked on the infield. That game should have never started. And instead, you lose Chase Burns. The Braves lost Spencer Strider, but the cost is much higher for Cincinnati losing Burns because they're in the midst of a playoff chase with a hungry fan base that's dying to get back to the postseason. You had all those fans sitting out in the rain forever, and you come back on Sunday, and you got to just throw whatever you can throw out there. And the Braves wind up with, look at that field. I mean, my God, there were puddles on the infield for crying out loud, Sam. How, if you're Major League Baseball, can you do this when they were very capable? Everybody had an off day on Sunday for the Reds and Braves. They could have just not played the game and played it on Sunday. You would have had the starting pitchers you were supposed to have. Instead, you had what was literally a mess.
Yeah, so the whole whether or not they should have started the game thing, I guess becomes interesting, but to me is like just a weird inconvenience and like something that no one really had control over on a greater awesome thing that Major League Baseball put together. And I cannot fault them for anything that they did. And here's why. Because we consistently talk about the problem with Major League Baseball being they don't change and they're so bad at marketing their stars and they don't progress with the times. And, I'll take you back to you mentioned the Field of Dreams game. Let's remember the original Field of Dreams game where it was only people from Iowa that could get a ticket to the game and still managed to upset a ton of Iowan baseball fans. It feels like the Rickwood Field thing, similar kind of idea, but it felt like Major League Baseball had learned from the two, at that point, Field of Dreams games. We completely forget about the second Field of Dreams game because it was awful. We only remember the first one because Tim Anderson hit that electric walk-off home run that nobody will ever forget. But we completely forget that the second one ever happened because it was a horrible game that also suffered a rain delay, I believe. They learned from the Field of Dreams experience, put it to use at Rickwood Field. It was a little better, and they just tried to scale that up with the Speedway Classic. Maybe they got a little bit too ahead of themselves, out over their skis, if you want to say that. But again, I cannot hold this against Major League Baseball because they are showing us that they're trying. They're trying to put baseball in front of 185,000, whatever it was, people. They're trying to set new records. They're trying so hard to make this game bigger than it is right now.
Sam, they're trying, but that trying on Saturday could have led to an injury. You have Ellie De La Cruz out there playing on that track. There was a play at first base. There was a play at first base in that game, in the first inning, I believe, where you've got a pitcher having to cover first base. He misses the base entirely, and all I could think to myself is, you're gonna have a pitcher like tear up a knee or something like that. I mean, it was. Look, I admire the fact that they are trying to reach out and do different things. Like I said, I talked about those other games, and by the way, don't forget that Little League Classic they had where the Tigers walked it off on the Yankees too.
They
which
still
was also,
have it every year.
Yeah, it's great.
So successful that it just becomes commonplace.
I love it. But this was dangerous, and it could have an impact at the end of the year if the Reds wind up missing out in a very tight race, as it is right now in that National League. For them to potentially lose out. I mean, it's a bad break if you're Terry Francona and that team and you fought your heart out. And that's not also, for all the talk about manager of the year and all this stuff, Terry Francona walks into Cincinnati and he's got that team potentially in the mix to make the playoffs. For all the talk about different guys and what they've done, and as much as we want to crush Aaron Boone, which is easy, that's like clubbing baby seals. What Terry Francona's done in Cincinnati should not be overlooked this year, Sam.
Yeah, the NL Central's been way more competitive. I mean, from day one, the NL Central's been more competitive than I think any of us thought it to be. I will say there are people out there in the betting community who thought they were super sharp betting the Cincinnati Reds to win the World Series back in April. Look how that turned out. To me, the Reds, and this may be a ballpark issue, it may be an ownership issue, the Reds very clearly have a ceiling year in and year out. Now, whether or not they reach that ceiling is a different story, but I don't ever feel like this team will be able to compete with the Padres of the world, the Phillies of the NL, the Dodgers of the NL, right? Their ceiling to me is like fourth or fifth best team in the National League at best.
120-1, by the way, right now on the Reds to win the World Series. Not a bad little flyer to take.
Oh, come on. What's your old saying? Just give me the money, I'll kick you, and then we'll call it even.
Yeah, kick you in the nuts, and we'll call it a day. Yeah. Phillies, by the way, second best odds now to win the World Series, by the way, at plus 850 for those that are keeping track at home. That Yankee number continues to drop. I wonder why. We're going to get to them coming up in a couple of minutes. If it isn't time, look, I keep saying what my one wish for the Yankees is this year, and it's not to win a World Series, because that we all know realistically that's not going to happen with this team. I have one wish for the Yankees. I will continue to say it. After a lost weekend in Miami. Who says lost weekend in Miami? All right, Sam, segment 3 of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, Robin Lundberg does a great job over at SI. He also hosts the Robin Lundberg Show on YouTube. Mad Dog Radio as well on Sirius XM. He's a huge wrestling guy. He was at SummerSlam last night. We'll get his thoughts on the Shocker, the Shock of Brock. Oh, see, you like that? I did that there. The Shock of Brock, with Brock Lesnar showing up at WrestleMania, or rather at SummerSlam last night at MetLife Stadium. Let's talk about the shock in Miami. I mean, who had the Yankees getting swept by the Marlins? I tell you, I'll give you credit. You have been very high on the Marlins, and all of a sudden you turn around, they're 55-55, and they still got a ways to go to try and win that wild card out there, or win one of those wild cards in the National League, and we're probably smoking something if we think they're going to wind up a wild card team. But I gotta say, I was impressed with what I saw out of the Marlins this weekend. As bad as the Yankees are, and they're a mess, and the base running stuff, and the errors and all this, as much as we could sit here and talk about that for a moment before we crush the Yankees, which is coming. I'm warning you in advance. Disclaimer, I'm about to crush the Yankees. What the Marlins have done at 55-55 is pretty remarkable.
Jason, it's incredible what the Marlins have done this season. A ragtag bunch, right? After, I think a lot of us, myself included, last season and coming into this season for a large portion of it, wrote off the Miami Marlins because of the management problems that they had going on. The removal of Kim Ng, the implementing of Peter Bendix. I'll say it. At the beginning of this whole thing, wasn't a huge Peter Bendix guy. I thought some of the moves that he made were a little bit misinformed. I'm eating crow on 100% on that. Clearly, one of the more forward-thinking baseball front offices in the league. I don't want to give all the credit just to one guy because it's incredible, the implementation of analytics and data that they've used down there. But I'll tell you, man, between the season that Kyle Stowers is having, the return from that Trevor Rogers trade just gets better and better by the day. This Marlins team, they've got a Rookie of the Year candidate in Gus Ramirez. This is a Marlins team that is going to hang around for a good while. And, the way the Phillies have trended over the last couple of years, you're seeing it with the Braves now. The Nationals are coming back up. It's time for the turning of the tables once again in the NL East. You see this in this division every 5 to 7 years. The bottom will flip to the top and the top to the bottom. It was at the end of Chipper Jones Jones's career, at the end of Jimmy Rollins' career the last time when Giancarlo Stanton was winning MVPs and Bryce Harper was winning MVPs. It's the last time the division looked like that. We're approaching the next time the division's going to look like that, Jason.
All right, let's talk about the mess that is the Yankees, because if I have to hear Aaron Boone go into a post-game press conference one more time and say, it's all right there in front of us, or we're not a bad defensive team, or we're not a bad base running team, and he tries to say, like, well, no, this stuff happens with all teams. These base running blunders, they happen with everybody. It's not just us it happens to. No. It happens to everybody, Sam. It's just there's more attention on us because we're the New York Yankees, and that's why it's getting more attention. Here's the problem with that. Every time I watch these games where the Yankees are making these mistakes, every time I watch these games, I look at the team across from them, they're not making those mistakes. So either all of these things happen when they're just not playing the Yankees, or Aaron Boone is just a bold-faced liar. And Aaron Boone is trying to put a, lipstick on a pig. He's trying to make this thing look better than it is. I keep saying it. I have one wish. Don't even make the playoffs. I want to see the Yankees miss everything. Or get into the wild card and just get your doors blown off, get smoked. I don't want to see the Yankees succeed this year. If it means the end of Aaron Boone, you even had Jeets and A-Rod this weekend that are out there saying it. There's got to be a change here. There's got to be something has to change. And again, if you can't change all the players, and you can't change all the pieces that, Brian Cashman has made and the components he's brought in. If you cannot do that, the change that has to be made is the manager. And I'm the first person to say, you can't say replace a manager, Sam, and then not have one to who's the next person going to be? All right, if you fire Aaron Boone, who are you going to get that's better? Anybody right now. I'll take anybody. I will take Sam Yarnell managing the New York Yankees right now. I'll take Joe Torre hobbling out in his uniform that doesn't fit anymore. I'll take Joe Torre. I'll take Don Mattingly. Give me Don Mattingly. Somebody call Willie Randolph. He's got nothing better to do. Give me anybody. I will take anybody over the current situation because something has to change. And it's not going to change as long as Aaron Boone remains the manager of this team.
Yeah, but I got news, Jason. It's nothing a manager can do with this team. And Aaron Boone, you were so close to having it right. You were like this close to being correct in your statement when he was saying, oh, we're just under a magnifying glass because it's New York and everyone wants to point out the bad things that we do because it's New York. No, Aaron, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. And you should know this because your entire baseball career is built off of one moment that just so happened to happen in New York and made you be able to build your entire career off of it. If that moment happened in San Francisco, there's no chance that you could have built an entire career off of one moment. The reason that playing in New York is a good thing for baseball players is that it's because the great things are put under a magnifying glass, and generally the bad things are overlooked strongly, unless they're so egregiously bad that it's the only thing that you can talk about with the team, which just so happens to be the point that we're at with the Yankees right now, which brings me to the real problem with the Yankees, and it's one that you're not going to be able to shed even with the canning of Aaron Boone. There is a fundamental problem with the way this organization identifies, develops, and profits off of talent. It's been the case for we're going on a decade now since the Yankees actually produced a meaningful prospect who came up and had an extensive career in Major League Baseball. It's Aaron Judge. That's the last one. And they kind of ran into that one too because he wasn't a highly touted prospect.
No, he wasn't.
This is an organization that has failed their fan base in terms of developing talent, and we're finally at the point where they have to reap the disadvantages of it.
Luis Heel might wind up being a good prospect. We'll have to see. But your point is well taken. Your point is very well taken. Maybe Cam Schlittler pans out. We'll have to see. He actually pitched pretty well.
You said his name right.
We're coming back. All right, This Monday edition of Sports Wrap continues, and if I'm talking about wrestling, you know something big must have happened. I'm not like one of those parachute wrestling fans. I mean, I keep pretty good tabs on what's going on, although I have watched wrestling much less, Raw especially, since it went to Netflix. It's just not the same as being able to flip over and watch it over on USA. Robin Lundberg is here, host of the Robin Lundberg Show. Does a terrific job with that over on YouTube. You can catch him on SiriusXM radio, also with SI on the women's basketball. He's a busy guy, and he was at SummerSlam, the two-day event at MetLife Stadium. And look, let's start with the obvious, and that's Brock Lesnar's shocking appearance at the end of the event last night. As somebody who was in the stadium, try and describe what the moment was like, the pop, if you will, when Lesnar's music hits with John Cena in the ring.
Yeah, it was epic. I mean, there's, an energy that only a live professional wrestling, really a live WWE event can bring. The kind of thing that you wish you could bottle and take it home with you and take a drink of it at any time. And that Brock Lesnar moment was that, right? I mean, you had it the night before with Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank cash in, which genuinely caught me off guard because I thought guy was hurt. Like they worked me and I, talk about this for part of my living, right? And I talk about sports. It looked like a legitimate sports injury. But the other one, I remember my oldest son, Raj, he predicted a massive return. And I was like, all right, so what would that be, bud? And he was thinking, I was like, to me, and this is me talking now, I said the only name I can think of that would qualify is Brock Lesnar, right? Because you could, if The Rock had showed up, I don't know if that's a return per se, because he was just involved in somebody who had been gone for a while that would catch people off guard was Brock Lesnar. Now, of course, there's the other factors around the Brock Lesnar situation, which I'm sure will get discussed, particularly online, but in the stadium, live in person, the paying customer, everybody went absolutely ballistic when that music hit.
I'm trying to figure out, though, with all the stuff that did take place with Brock and the controversy surrounding him because he was kind of linked in this whole Vince McMahon mess that that went down, and we saw them basically put him out to pasture. And this is Mr. WWF WWE Vince McMahon. What does it say that they are allowing Brock Lesnar back into the mix? Is it what Cena wanted? Because I heard, Triple H talk about it in the post show that, hey, whatever John Cena wants for this final run. Is it as simple as that?
I think, there's probably numerous factors at play. Yes, John Cena wanting Brock Lesnar is a big deal because John Cena is a big deal. Secondly, Brock Lesnar is a big deal, as you can see by the crowd reaction. That cannot be ignored, right? Like, you just can't just go like, that didn't happen. That happened. I'm assuming the TKO lawyers have looked at everything regarding this situation because they were quick to push the Vince out the door. They have so many different sponsors. I mean, Slim Jim's right on the table every time it gets broken through. And then I do think there is a broader aspect of who the president of the United States is right now, who is, friendly with Triple H, not to mention the sentiment of culture changing slightly in a little bit where there's like a pushback against quote unquote woke or whatever. Now, all of that, every situation, before I get flamed or anything, every situation needs to be judged on its own merits, and people should be responsible for their actions, and people are entitled to feel how they feel about everything. But I'm just talking from like a broad standpoint on what may be deemed not necessarily acceptable, but what people may be less afraid of.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Say this. Given the circumstances, given where he is at 48 years old, the event, the moment, that was one of the best matches of John Cena's life last night.
Oh, yeah. I have to go back and watch it, but I would say it may be the best match of his career.
That's what I said.
I mean, he pulled out more stops than I've seen him do, more spots that were more creative, that involved more athleticism, more modern sort of wrestling. Because as great as John Cena is, I don't think anybody pointed to his in-ring work as necessarily the strength of his career. I mean, it wasn't a negative. It didn't bring him down, but it wasn't the first thing you think of. And I thought he pulled a lot of tricks out of the bag, and you could see him having fun. You could see him also realizing the magnitude of the moment, because he acknowledged some of the "this is awesome" chants that were like audible enough for it to cut through into the ring. And I think John Cena soaked that up. He went, "Oh yeah, we're doing the damn thing," and he continued to do the damn thing.
Last one real quick with Seth Rollins and what he did on Saturday night, taking the title away from CM Punk after Punk wins it just moments earlier against Gunther. Where does this lead in that storyline to you?
I mean, it's tough to predict. That was unpredictable. I mean, I think they're going to run back Punk and Seth now, obviously, right? And then they have to get to Roman Seth at some point, because that's the one thing I'm curious about, is what's next for Roman Reigns. You know, he was the champ for 4 years, and then he opened the show, which it was great. And him and Jey Uso, and that you could argue that was the best match of night one. But, you know, Roman Reigns is such a big deal. How does he factor into that dynamic? You know, he has the history with Seth. So I'm seeing some sort of triangle, you know, that continues from WrestleMania, where Paul Heyman turned on Punk and Roman, and Seth with the championship has to deal with Punk and Roman.
Yeah, Roman flying over the top rope, that running flying maneuver he did, jumping onto the guys, the bronze outside the ring. That was pretty amazing stuff. Robin Lundberg, catch him over on YouTube, the Robin Lundberg Show, also with the stuff on SI with the women's basketball. I'm sure we'll have you back on to talk about that soon as well. Robin, I always appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
You got it.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap on this Monday, including my guy, Brian Twining. We've got a NASCAR race to talk about in Iowa. William Byron, your winner in what was a mess. We'll get to it next. All right. Odds and Ends wraps it up in about 10 minutes on the show. Notes from golf and track and field makes it into the show today. I got nothing for you. Let's talk some NASCAR. Every Monday on the show, Brian Twining joins us from Bleacher Nation to break down what happened in NASCAR. The Cup Series visited Iowa this weekend, the Iowa 350. Brian, and I was telling you off air, and I was sharing this with you and our friend Tino Patino on Sunday. It was the first race this season that I watched every single lap of. Like literally from beginning to end, I was there for the entire Iowa 350 and all 5,300 cautions that came with it apparently in this race. I'm like, my God. Which we'll get to in a second. William Byron is your winner. Second time this season that he gets a win. And after so many near misses and issues with fuel, and again, it came down to literally just the last drops of fuel. He was running on fumes, basically, going to the finish line. We almost wound up with another different winner. We were that close, Brian, to, Brad Keselowski had an opportunity. Ryan Preece had an opportunity. But at the end of the day, it was William Byron that gets the checkered flag.
Yeah, for the first time this year, fuel strategy actually goes the 24's way. I mean, we saw it at Pocono a couple of weeks ago where he actually ran out of fuel, and I believe it was at Michigan where they had a similar situation where they had to pit early. So 24 team did everything right, or at least they hit the cautions right in order for them to make it there at the end. And as you said, biggest loser of this race is surely Brad Keselowski, who by all accounts had the best car, was the only guy that made an organic pass for the lead from what I saw while watching the race when he passed Byron towards the end of the stage one. So yeah, they now look forward to 3 more races for them to try to lock in, as is Ryan Preece, who found an opportunity up at the front as well late there.
Yes, he certainly did. And Preece right now is on the outside looking in at the playoffs. He's 17th. Chris Buescher and Alex Bowman, along with Tyler Reddick, have that 14th, 15th, and 16th spot. And it feels like Reddick is pretty secure at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, because Reddick has just been able to do enough to, be in this position where if he does secure a win in these last 3 races, he's not going to be one of the last guys in the playoff standings because he has been pretty consistent throughout the year. So he's had a decent year, and I do think he's fairly safe when we're looking at the playoff picture.
What do you attribute the fact that basically stage 1 was as clean as can be? Clean and green, or green and clean, as they like to say. But then basically after the first 150 laps of this race, it felt like the last 200, there were just wrecks everywhere. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I definitely think it has to be attributed to the stress levels rising as we get closer and closer to the end of a race, where guys know like this is the pay window is open, where the first stage, yes, there's stage points. There's a playoff point for the stage 1 winner out there. But guys know like you can't win a race or even finish if you don't get there. So stage 1 only being 70 laps too. I don't think guys were too aggressive in the moves that they were trying to make. And then as we got later in the race with all the restarts, that's where all the action actually occurs. And that's why we had so many cautions there.
Is there something, with the first 2 years of this race, is there something you'd like to see them do, whether it's in the setup of the cars, the tires, because we saw guys, having issues with tires again in this race. Is there something you would like to see NASCAR do with this race coming back here next year?
Look, I'm pretty sure I said this last week. I'm not a car expert.
No, I know.
It is fairly clear. It's pretty damn clear. We need a new aero package and probably more horsepower. The tires are just a Band-Aid and a perception fix to a larger issue of this car not allowing guys to make passes.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, go ahead.
And to me, that ruins the short track racing, because when you have a guy who's running 3 to 5 tenths faster than somebody in front of them, yet they still can't pass because of aero blocking or simply not being able to stay in the bottom lane, it just makes the racing not enjoyable to people that know what's happening on the track.
A thought on Bubba Wallace, by the way, who came off the win last week, because he all day it felt like, he was anywhere from like 17th to 20th. Then I turned around at the end of the race, he finished 6th. How the hell did he finish 6th? What did I miss?
All credit to that team, and also the relaxation that he felt going into the race. And he said it in his post-race presser that this was the first time he was able to just have fun and go out there and ride freely. And they let the race come to them. And with being one of the last guys to pit on that last caution, he had fresh tires, full tank of gas. He didn't have to save anything. He was able to go full throttle, and tires did matter to a degree when they were 40 or 50 laps fresher than the rest of the field, which is how he was able to make his way up to the front here.
Where did Carson Hocevar finish yesterday? Because I saw his name all day.
He was 9th.
Yeah, all right. I thought it was a top 10.
Or 8th.
Because he was kind of all over the place and bumping up against people, and he was sort of everywhere. I wonder if Carson Hocevar could steal a win here in the last few weeks.
I just want to make a point and say, I think that is the perfect example of how wild and chaotic yesterday's race was, is that Carson Hocevar, one of the reasons we had a caution earlier in the race, him getting spun out also too in the middle of it, finishes inside the top 10. And yes, I do think Hocevar has a chance, but most likely at Daytona.
All right, fair enough. Quick thought in the last 20 seconds on Watkins Glen.
Trackhouse versus Chris Buescher. That's kind of where I'm looking at. Connor Zilic is jumping into the 87 once again. So we're going to get a Cup Series Zilic versus Van Gisbergen battle.
Love it. Brian Twining, check him out. Bleacher Nation does a great job over there. Thank you, my friend. Have yourself a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Thanks, Jason.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap on a Monday. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Tomorrow on the show, I'm going to actually do a two-shot here, just so I can see Sam's reaction when I say this. Diana Rossini on the show tomorrow, Sam. Oh, look at that. That's as big as you'll ever see the kid smile. Woo! Diana Rossini of The Athletic will hang out with us on tomorrow's show. Always happy to welcome her into the mix. Couple of reminders for you before we say goodbye. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it. If there is a podcasting platform, our show is available on it. And all you got to do is subscribe. It's free, commercial free. 45 minutes, boom, right there for you every day. You can be in the shower, on the treadmill, laying in bed, on the train, plane, car, wherever. Make sure to go and check that out. If you love watching us, but sometimes you can't get in front of the television, you want to watch us on your iPad, your laptop, your phone, whatever it may be, there are two other ways you can watch the show, aside from the over 300 affiliates we are now on as of September 1st. Over 300 affiliates that we will be on. There's two ways you can watch. One is through Spotify. Go and watch the show there, and again, make sure to subscribe. It's commercial free. Or on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Clips from the show through Sports Wrap Shorts, the full show there every day as well. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. How about Cameron Young? Let's a tip of the cap to that man, because he's one of those, best golfers never to win anything. And Cameron Young finally gets that elusive first PGA Tour title. He did it at the Wyndham Championship, Sam Yarnell, in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he did it in convincing fashion. Won by 6 shots. 1,000th player to win a recognized PGA Tour event, by the way, as well, which goes all the way back to 1860. And congratulations to Cameron Young. I think he deserves an attaboy. There you go.
Yeah, very cool for Cameron Young after all the narratives that have surrounded him for so long and all the coverage that he's gotten to be Mr. 1000. A very cool little moment there in the golf world on Sunday, Jason.
Yep, very cool. Cameron Young, congratulations to him. And who knows, maybe it unlocks him and he does some other things. We'll have to wait and see. So Cameron Young wins. Also, another note to be mentioned from golf. Congratulations to Miyu Yamashita. She wins one of the LPGA majors, or the women's golf majors. She holds off Charlie Hull to capture the Women's Open Championship. It's her first major victory as well. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. What the hell? It almost makes me want to watch track. When Noah Lyles and this guy Bednarik were going down the backstretch at this track and field event, I have always said I have never understood why professional track and field, why there is, we love horse racing. And, those are horses going down a track. Why don't people want to watch, like, actual fastest people in the world race against each other? I think like a pro league for something like this, I have always said that I have always thought it would do really well. And I know there's some ideas, or there's some things that have started with professional track and field and this sort of stuff. But man, there is nothing more exciting than those few seconds that these guys are racing down the track. And it got a little contentious with Noah Lyles and this guy Bednarik, who was winning the race most of the way, and then Lyles came back at the end and wins. And if you watch here at the end, they got in each other's faces, and it got a little contentious there.
Yeah, weird, very weird moment from Noah Lyles. Like, I don't know, man. It feels like every time we talk about this guy, it's something else, something just besides him running track. I'll answer your question quite frankly, though. The real reason that we don't sit around for 20 minutes to watch a 45-second race all the time is because every Sunday I turn on my TV and they're gladiators in full armor doing exactly that, but then hitting each other. And I'll take that 7 days a week over a couple of guys running around some clay.
What are you talking about? What are you referring to?
Football, my gosh. That? Give me a cornerback chasing down a linebacker 10 times out of 10 over that. But yeah, Noah Lyles again, like it feels like that's a great moment to build up your sport rather than to create another enemy. Just weird motion out of that guy, continuous lack of aura.
Kenny Bednark and Noah Lyles. We'll see if those two continue to sort of go toe to toe.
I might be a Kenny B guy now. I might have to be a Kenny B guy.
That's it? Okay, simple as that. Also deserves mentioning is the NFLPA, and we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow, but the NFLPA has elected David White as its interim executive director, Sam Yarnell, 17 days after Lloyd Howell was sort of unceremoniously dismissed or left on his own. Real quick.
Don't have a lot of time, but there's going to be some interesting reporting about this guy.
Yes. Watch Pablo Torre. I'd say watch this space, but watch Pablo Torre. He'll have plenty of it covered. We got to go. Thank you to all of our guests. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Diana Rossini on the show tomorrow. We'll see you then.